Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our July 2024 Q&A, and we've got tons of great stuff to talk about, like Ryzen 9000 series CPUs coming down the pike. Will they be able to beat the 7800X 3D? But more importantly, will they be the better value? We'll also talk about the best 1440p GPU in 2024. Should you be buying something right now, or should you be waiting for RTX 5000 series GPUs or RX 8000 series GPUs? We'll talk about multiple monitor setups and how to avoid a GPU bottleneck, and a lot of other great PC building questions. Remember, if you get value out of this video, give it a like, so it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe for cool PC building content. With that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 10 or 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And Windows 10 can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. We've got Annan. Annan asks, what's the minimum GPU from both teams? I guess we're just gonna ignore Intel out there. We're just gonna go NVIDIA versus AMD. That you would go with in order to achieve solid 1440p gaming performance, 120 plus frames. Well, obviously we're talking about the best 1440p graphics card in 2024. And I'm just gonna stop right here, because what do we mean by 120 plus frames? 120 frames is easy to achieve in a game like CS2 on balanced or competitive settings. You can get that with like a potato these days. But if you want to get 120 plus frames with Cyberpunk 2077 or Alan Wake 2, first of all, I don't think you can do it with Alan Wake 2, at ultra settings. So let's start off, let's talk about for single player titles, then we'll get to the competitive shooting. Because single player titles right now, the benchmarks are pretty clear. Across a wide suite of harder to run single player titles at ultra settings, you're looking for a 7900 XT 20 gigabyte GPU or the RTX 4070 Ti Super. Yes, those are super powerful GPUs. That's what you need to play those kind of titles on a higher refresh rate monitor at ultra settings. Now you can do a couple things. Number one, and what I would recommend, turn the settings down to high. I've said for a while, it doesn't make much sense to play at ultra. It's one thing to test the GPUs at ultra to kind of get a worst case scenario. Oftentimes turning the settings down to just high settings will make a huge difference in your FPS. And a lot of times I don't see almost any difference in the visuals. That's why I recommend playing on high, even though we test at ultra. Of course, a lot of you just want to focus on those competitive multiplayer titles, getting 120 FPS at more balanced settings. So you're going to go low settings so you can push as many frames as you want. And honestly, the good news here is that VRAM is not as much of an issue, although if you ever do want to play those single player titles at 1440p, VRAM is an issue, so I would recommend at least considering that in the overall equation. That's why I like the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte, currently like $280 on Prime Day, got down to $260 again. But really the 6750 XT 12 gigabyte or 6700 XT, if you have those in your market, they got down to $269 for the 6750 XT in the US during Prime Day. And you can still pick them up for like $280, $290. Incredible deal for that. Although right now, this 7600 XT 16 gigabyte can be had for like $285, and that's my substitute. That's way more powerful than the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte. It's got plenty of VRAM. Those are the kind of minimum points of entry for the best 1440p GPU if you're looking for it in 2024. All right, when are we gonna get next generation GPUs? Is it gonna be soon? What's the performance gonna be? What's the price gonna be? And how's it gonna pan out between AMD versus NVIDIA? Reluctant Hero, channel member, wants to know all these things. They say AMD's gone on record to say that they're not going to be competing with NVIDIA at the high end, that's like the RTX 4080 and 4090, for their next generation RX 8000 series GPUs, which is codenamed RDNA 4. But do we think we'll see an 8900 XT with their next series of cards, or are they just going to top out at the 8800 XT? Yeah, so let's just quickly go through this. We're expecting leaks and rumors here. There's all leaks and rumors. There's nothing been actually announced. In fact, I don't believe that AMD has gone on record saying that top-end RDNA 4 has been canceled, but I think we all know it's been canceled. There's been a lot of leaks on that one. What are we expecting to get at the end of the year or early 2025? We are expecting to get the RTX 5080 and 5090, probably paper launch at least at the end of the year with most of the volume. into 2025. And we're also expecting to get from AMD either at the end of this year or early next year, at least the top end card from their next generation of GPUs. Now, that should have been something like the 8900 XTX, but they couldn't get the multi-chip module to work in their higher end GPUs. They're trying to have a Ryzen moment for GPUs the same way they had a Ryzen moment for CPUs, which allowed them using chiplets to make CPUs significantly cheaper with better performance and more flexibility than, for instance, Intel can put out right now. And that's largely a lot of their success on the Ryzen model. They've been trying to port that over to GPUs, and the top end die for Radeon 7000 series GPUs that we got a couple years ago was the first iteration of that. However, they ran into development problems, it looks like, for the next generation, and they completely skipped it. They're just offering the monolithic, the traditional stuff that they would have offered for RX 8000, and they're pushing all that development into the next generation of RDNA 5 and trying to rush out what will probably RX 9000 series GPUs top end a lot sooner than expected. So we're going to get kind of a gap filler, and that should be the 8800 XT and 8700 XT. We're expecting the performance to be in line somewhere between the 7900 XT and XTX for a lot cheaper. So basically, we're going to take that top end performance and we're going to move it down in terms of the price. Of course, one of the big rumors about AMD's next generation of GPUs is a huge uplift in ray tracing, including that they've reportedly completely redesigned their ray tracing engine, and it's going to be way more efficient and way more effective than it is right now, possibly rivaling where NVIDIA is. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But that is the current rumor right now in terms of its overall ray tracing performance. I think AMD's really, this next generation has really got to be focused in on insane price to performance with good amounts of VRAM, at least 12 gigabytes on the lower end card, and I would say 16 gigabytes minimum on their higher end cards. So we'll have to wait and see how all this pans out. But we are expecting these GPUs to at least start being announced Q4 of this year. And of course, we're going to get more of them next year. So it's going to be kind of an exciting time. We're going to start turning over the GPU generations and see where we go. All right, Year Climber asked a great question about Ryzen 9000 versus the 7800X 3D. Which one's going to be worth it? They're coming out in just a couple weeks. Now, obviously, we don't have a CPU yet. Nobody's got them yet from what I hear. So this is just based on publicly available information that AMD has made available both on their initial announcement, but they also held a tech day just a couple weeks ago, and I got to see some information from that as well. They're wondering if it's going to be worth buying the 9700X or 9600X over the 7800X 3D, especially if you value productivity more than gaming, but you also want a game, and what new Ryzen CPU is going to work best for the RTX 4070 Super. I like that second part because it kind of pegs what performance level you'll be looking at for these new CPUs. Because obviously right now the best value is the Ryzen 7600X. Jason, what happened? Why are we talking about the 7600X? Because it got down to $170 during Prime Day, and it's an insane value. And for most of you out there, all the way up to like the 7800 XT, it just makes so much more sense not to overspend on your CPU, even if you do get a very slight CPU bottleneck and get that bigger GPU, because you can always upgrade that CPU relatively easily in the future. But for those of you who wanted the 7800X 3D, AMD had some bad news for you. They pulled all the discounts out from under you. It was the fact that you could get the 7800X 3D for like $339, $329 out there. But just before Prime Day, they just completely deleted all those discounts through the retail channel. It went all the way back up to $400 for eventually settling like $385, which is, I think, is where it's sitting right now. So that's a huge difference, And part of that is because they want you to buy the new stuff. And they want to make you feel okay about spending extra on the new stuff than you would have spent on the old stuff. The way they do that is they're just going to delete those discounts. I would not be shocked if we saw the 7600X go back to like $229 or something ridiculous, where all those discounts go away from it while the 9600X launches. In terms of performance, we expect the 9700X roughly tie the 7800X 3D in gaming. I think it'll probably be a scenario where they trade blows depending on different types of games. And the 9700X, I would be shocked if we didn't see what we've seen in every generation, which is it gets very close to the previous generation's 12 core in terms of multi-threaded performance. So in this case, be very close to a 7900X, probably won't beat the 7900X. We saw that in the 9700X versus the 5900X, kind of similar kind of thing. And the other good news is the 9700X should be better on power than the 7800X 3D. So that's all good news out there. Where will the 9600X slot into this whole thing? I have no idea, to be quite honest with you. It seems kind of almost maybe that's the odd one out. If you want the highest end gaming performance, you'll probably go with the 9700X, given that they're going to delete all the discounts on the 7800X 3D, and they're going to price that CPU out. Now, here's the thing. Eventually, at some point, they will cut prices on the 7800X 3D again, and they will ensure that the 7600X is cheap, but maybe not immediately. In the past, what we've seen is about a 3 to 6 month delay between the introduction of a new generation of CPUs and a reduction of prices on the old generation. So right now, I think you're going to be mostly focused on Ryzen 9000 when it launches. Azure asks a great question. Should you buy now or should you wait? Is it a good time to buy now into newer Intel CPUs 12 through 14 gen? There are some discounts out there, right? And RTX 4000 series GPUs, or just wait another 4 to 6 months for Intel 15th gen, which will be Arrow Lake. I think they're going to call them Core Ultra. And RTX 5000 series GPUs. Let's start off with the NVIDIA stuff. I would not wait for RTX 5000 series. Absolutely not wait. Think about it this way. NVIDIA is making this amount of money on AI and this amount of money on gaming GPUs. Where's their focus going to be? Because the silicon production is limited out there. I suspect all that's going to go to AI. The launch will probably get for like the RTX 5090 and 5080, especially the fact that they won't be able to sell the 5090 into China because of the AI export ban that's in place right now from the US government. I expect those to be very low volumes, minimal stuff, and scalpers will probably grab whatever they actually do come to market with and just grab it all. It'll be a total disaster. We'll be talking about probably for months. It's how hard it is to get one of those GPUs at MSRP, and the pricing will go off the chart. Do you really want to wait for that total cluster of a launch? I don't really want to wait for that. I'd go ahead and grab something now. Let's talk about Intel, because they're in a bad spot right now. They promised to tell us what was wrong with their Raptor Lake CPUs by May, and it's July, and they still have not come with like a root cause analysis, breaking it all down and telling us what corrective actions they're going to take. And I'm just really worried because I really hope Arrow Lake is going to be a great CPU architecture, because we need them in the space to compete with AMD. Otherwise, it costs you money. Even if you buy an AMD Ryzen CPU, you're going to pay more for that CPU than you otherwise would without competition out there, right? So if there was competition, you'd be paying less for the CPUs. And right now, Intel's not putting up a very good fight. That being said, for more budget builders, yeah, the i5-12400F is a great CPU at like $100 right now. It's crazy good value. There are still some good B660 motherboards out there, but we're talking about the budget end of the market, and you're also talking about RTX 4000 series GPU. So I don't think that's where you're at right now. You're looking maybe like the 13600K is almost $200 out there. I expect the 9600X, maybe you want 229 to 249 to heavily compete with it and outcompete it in terms of gaming. So Intel's in a weird spot right now. If you're focused on buying Intel, I would wait till Arrow Lake comes out, and I'm very, very hopeful. Come on, Intel. You can come back. We need you back in this market. And I'm also excited, of course, for Intel Battlemage GPUs, but that's another day. Caroline asks a great question about bottlenecking your GPU with your monitor. Could having two monitors or having a monitor with too high of a resolution cause a bottleneck? Yes. If so, what's the best way to determine your monitor setup that won't cause a CPU and GPU bottleneck? And if the monitor isn't a cause of the bottleneck, could you explain bottlenecks, because I'm lost? Don't worry, CPU and GPU bottlenecks I found are so misunderstood out there, to the point where people either don't know like what to get in terms of their CPU and GPU balance, or they very confidently state an opinion, and I see this all the time, and that opinion is dead wrong, but they believe their opinion very strongly. So one of the things we try and do on this channel is just kind of give you the information that you need to move forward. That's why we have our best CPU and GPU combo video out there that goes into the differences between CPU bottlenecks, GPU bottlenecks, and how to get the right balance for your budget. Remember, the budget is also a very important part of this. Of course, one of the other things that can also bottleneck your GPU is your monitor setup. So a widescreen monitor, 16:9, that's a mainstream monitor out there, right? Whether it be 1440p, 1080p, or 4K. Whatever FPS you're gonna get there, if you now have a second monitor that's the same monitor, and you also are outputting the game to that one as well in a kind of a multi-monitor setup, then yes, you're increasing the number of pixels that the GPU has to render. So now you're imposing a performance, possibly a bottleneck on it. You're going to get lower FPS overall. And my recommendation would be to go up in terms of GPU performance. So if you're looking at something like a 7700 XT, go to a 7800 XT or a 7900 XT, something like that. Get something that's more powerful. And I will also say that also applies if you go from like a widescreen monitor to an ultra wide or a super ultra wide. Same kind of thing. You're rendering more pixels. Of course, it also applies if you're going up in terms of resolution from 1080p to 1440p to 4K. Each one of those has more pixels than the last. So that's the performance that you're requiring out of your GPU is going up. So my recommendation, get a bigger GPU. We got a lot of great questions about who else? The cat. Number one, got a really important question, Jason, from Wyatt Clark. What kind of cat treats does Mr. Bear like? Mr. Bear, aka Ambrosius, absolutely loves the greenies treats, and he loves the salmon flavor. These are the dental treats. We're happy to give them to you. They actually are pretty low calorie. Now, we don't want to give them too many because we want it to be a treat. But let me tell you, these cats love those treats. If you have a cat at home, you should try them. Xnova Corona asks, when did Mr. Bear get hired? Well, here's what you may not know. Mr. Bear actually founded the channel and he hired me to be the face of it. He actually produces everything in the background. He builds all the PCs. I just say stuff out loud. He's actually on the other side of the camera right now telling me what a good job I'm doing. And at the end of this, I'm going to get a raise. Maybe I will even get a treat myself. Remember, if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Speaking of cool content, did you check out our best 1440p gaming monitor buying guide for 2024? Because right now, right here, you can find gaming monitors 1440p, high refresh rate for about $160. It's totally insane. Check it out, and we'll catch you on the next one.